Assalamualaikum, everyone. Today is September 26th, 2021. Welcome to Wall Street to Bay Street Sunday Chai with Sherry Portfolio Canada. My name is Nadeem.
My name is Shamil. Get your chai ready and let's get into the swing of things. So before we start today, we have some exciting news. We have our new advisor, Sajjad. So we just want to introduce him and let him kind of say a few words. So Sajjad, take it away.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sajjad. I'm a new financial advisor in Sharia Portfolio Canada. I'm based in Vancouver and I can speak Farsi. I'm be happy to be here.
Awesome.
Thank you, Sajjad. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm really excited to get working with you. And yeah, hopefully this is it's a usual thing on our podcast, I guess. So Nadeem, let's get right into the events here. You know, it's a pretty busy week in the market, pretty heavy Monday. Why don't you start off by talking about, what is Evergrande, which has been in the markets quite a bit, and how big is it?
Sure. Yeah. So Evergrande is the second largest private property developer in China, and actually a very heavily debted one at that. They were founded in 1996, and they've been kind of the face of Chinese real estate. So as far as the company itself, they are a company that's mostly been financing exponential growth with a lot of credit and loans. Last year, in terms of how big it is, last year they did about 78 billion in revenue in more than 250 cities. They employ more than 200,000 people, and they generate about 3.8 million jobs indirectly, through that. So ultimately, I mean, this is a company right now that operates in 1,300 real estate projects across China, and they've expanded into other facets such as theme parks, health services, mineral water, EV, manufacturing, and so forth.
And Nadeem, why is Evergrande facing a crisis?
Yeah, so basically, the problem really started to emerge for Evergrande last year during the coronavirus pandemic, which caused lockdowns in China, and that really dampened the property sales market for that period of month. Now, to compound that, the government of China was also cracking down on the borrowing by real estate developers during that time as well. And so ultimately, it did started to feel some type of a cash crunch during that time, and they in fact started to pay some suppliers with some unfinished apartments, as a sign of how bad it was getting.
So let me ask you this, Nadeem. Like, how much does Evergrande owe?
Well, I mean, it is really kind of a monumental number, but as of the end of June, the company had about 89 billion in outstanding debt. 42% is actually due in less than a year, and so the company is on the verge of bankruptcy, basically. However, more recent news. There was some good news, like for example, this week they did resolve an onshore interest payment of about 232 million won, and which equates to about 36 million on Wednesday. But the biggest thing also this week, I guess the negative was that so far they weren't able to meet a debt obligation that was due on the 23rd of September, which was about 83.5 million in interest payment. And so that's now they have about 30 days until it's officially a default. But to put things into perspective for Evergrande's total liabilities, they are about 6.5% of the total Chinese property market's liabilities, and it's around 9% of the total Chinese offshore bond market financing. It's not just the debt, as well as the other obligations, the liabilities, I should say, that they owe to suppliers and other kind of suppliers and other developers that they owe.
And what do you think about future? Could Evergrande cause a global financial crisis?
Well, I mean, that's kind of been the talk of town, right? Is that will this will this transform into something else? Is there a contagion theory across this thing? Now, the Chinese financial system and economy, right, relies heavily on property growth, for jobs and everything. So, that's number one, right? In theory, the collapse could chase investors away from China, which sometimes can cause a financial crisis. But ultimately, a lot of the Chinese government does have a lot of abilities to contain and manage this crisis, because a lot of the debt is in local currency. So, anytime that's, you could say that's obviously a positive. And I think with the Chinese, the Chinese government does not want to bail them out. That would kind of look bad. But what the Chinese government might want to do is, kind of focus on the people that have bought properties, the buyers of the properties, and the suppliers, for example, that are owed this money and haven't been paid.
Yeah, and I guess the last question I have is, will this, with the news with Evergrande, could this news hurt the growth of China and their markets?
Well, I mean, right now, a lot of some of the analysts on Wall Street, what they're thinking is that, with Chinese home sales, weakening, with the drop of property value that we've seen in China over the past, year, it does affect, sentiment. It does affect like the value, the values and net worth of investors. So far, this, that in itself could, cause damage to the economy in terms of, for example, like a lot of people will take property and they will lean it against something else. So when that value drops, it can, create some type of a financial stress. But generally speaking, I would say that, it will focus on the Chinese consumer and how it really kind of impacts them. If it obviously impacts the Chinese consumer, it can technically, hurt the Chinese economy. And specifically, if we're looking at Chinese stocks, for example, naturally, if the economy and the consumers aren't doing well, then you should probably expect, some type of impact on Chinese businesses and stocks.
Awesome. Thank you for that information. So, once again, that's all the questions we had today. It was a really eventful week in the markets. So for myself, Nadeem, and Sajjad, thank you for joining us. And hopefully we'll see you with your chai next week. And if you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Nadeem Mian, Portfolio Manager, registered as an advising representative, and Shamil Devji, Financial Advisor, registered as a dealing representative with Sharia Portfolio Canada Inc., a portfolio manager registered in the provinces of Ontario, British Columbia, and Alberta. Their opinions and statements expressed in this show are their personal opinions and do not necessarily reflect those of Sharia Portfolio. They are effective as of the date of this broadcast only and are subject to change. This discussion is for general information purposes only and is not investment advice.